it's fun though. I mean, we're here to talk about Ladybuds, and for those of you joining us, I'm here with director CJ Russo. Thanks again for your time. I kind of want to start off by saying this film became a little bit more personal for me because number one, I am from Berkeley. I grew up there for about 16, 17 years of my life. I have a lot of close friends in the Mendocino area, so I was very familiar with
Wow.
with some of the places in Ukiah and things like that. And also not necessarily an avid, but yeah, I smoke weed every now and then, especially for different situations when I just want to relax a little bit. So it all came together, and I really enjoyed your film.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so
What
much. It means a lot.
I know this is your first feature there for a film that you're making. What is it that this was the way to go for you?
Well, when I saw that recreational legalization was on the ballot in 2016 in California, it was called Prop 64. I knew we were about to see a big shift in our culture, in the way people thought about cannabis and in the economy. Because as we know, California, I think, is the fifth largest economy in the world. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a major, change for everybody in the state. And, I was deciding on how to vote for Prop 64 and doing a lot of research. And I came across a lot of media that focused on women in the space. And I came across a statistic that said 36% of leadership roles in the cannabis industry were held by women. And I was like, wow, that's unprecedented in any other industry that I know of. And I was frankly pleasantly surprised. And I thought it was super cool. And so I started to go to women in cannabis networking conferences and farmers markets, and met a lot of women in the space, cultivators, activists, entrepreneurs. And their stories were amazing. Everybody who is passionate about cannabis and seems to have been in that culture for a long time, they have very interesting stories because they're risking their freedom, or in the past they've been risking freedoms to cultivate a plant that was, illegal. So, I just was really enamored by the women of the community, and I interviewed over 100. And as a documentarian, you're led by your curiosity and to find the story. And after interviewing so many women, I wanted to pick the most diverse voices because cannabis touches so many different issues and topics historically and currently, and interweave them to sort of give a snapshot of what legalization has been in California. It's a historical moment. So we created the framework, myself and my producer, the 1 year leading up to legalization, through in the lives of these women, and then the 1 year following, to see how they would survive when we saw big business come in, and these deep pocketed corporations. So I'm a queer filmmaker. I like to give voice to marginalized communities, women, queer voices. And, I like to do sort of like, interesting, not so mainstream storytelling, but I want to craft it in a way that is mainstream to give people things to think about. So I was really drawn to telling this story because of the women, and because frankly, cannabis, I've had a relationship with cannabis, for a while. And I always thought of it as being the symbol of counterculture movement. Right. And then when, I saw the corporations coming in, taking over weed, I was like, oh, wow, nobody's really telling this story. I mean, it's all these green rusher stories and Murder Mountain stories. And I just thought this was going to be a different perspective on it. And maybe I was naive, because I was running that camera for several years. I didn't maybe know exactly what I was getting myself into, but I do feel like I caught a moment that's important to share. And cannabis aside, these women are amazing. Very inspiring to just kind of go for their dreams against such obstacles.
Yeah, and I think that's what the biggest takeaway is how inspiring they are as far as not giving up, and despite every hurdle and roadblock that is thrown at them, they find a way to continue on and to figure things out. And I'll be honest, it was such a frustrating thing to watch because I think it's very smart the way we saw some of their lives before the vote and after. And you would think
Yeah.
that that moment is going to make things easier for them. And I think the heartbreaking real story, well, they all have their moments too, but for the Bud sisters to get a permit and then decide it was no, it's too difficult for something they've already been doing
Correct.
for the whole lives.
Yeah, I mean, we should be questioning, the way the system is set up, and the way these laws are written. Um, and as cannabis is unfolding across the country, now is an opportunity to not, to make sure everybody is accessible to entering the market. And the way California, kind of came out really writing regulations and rewriting them to benefit, multi-million-dollar companies, unfortunately is really impacting people like the Bud sisters. And they represent to me the OGs that have been
Mhm.
making the medicine in the hills off the grid for decades. And it's a shame that thousands of people are walking away from their land because they can't afford the taxes. They can't afford what it takes to be legal when they wanted to come out of the shadows, and not, and live their authentic lives out in the open. So yeah, I mean, the Bud sisters are amazing. They're amazing. They're still, cultivating their personal plants. They're still making their salve. But they do represent that era,
Mhm.
of farmers. I've been doing it for decades, and I've just sort of like, when you get into that age range, who has millions of dollars to enter an industry. So
So what was the process for you like that, capturing some of those moments? I mean, it was just the planning commission meeting comes to mind. The moment that they're thinking of the moment that I think it's Chiah, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, where she has to go back to a day job, um, and some of these moments that are very very intimate and very heartbreaking. How was that for you as a filmmaker to catch those moments?
I wish I could transport myself back to when I was filming those moments. I was so laser focused on capturing the verite and observing what was going on. And over the course of time, I did I did get very close to the women in the film. And many of the moments we were going to film, we thought it was going to be the opposite situation. I don't want to give too much away, but like when Karyn was going to the council meeting, we thought it was going to be the opposite result. And when that went down around the parking issue, we were like, oh my God, like, I can't believe this is actually happening. So for me, it was important to create a sense of space in a world that was very intimate with the women. I was very lucky that they brought me into their lives and trusted me to tell their stories. I feel very privileged. It was an emotional roller coaster. I mean, it's kind of an emotional roller coaster to make a film, to be the filmmaker and to be like having those, be in those situations and be always driving up and down the state to capture all these moments. And of course, I have my own point of view, and I was rooting for everyone in the film. So it's been mixed. It's been a mixed emotional ride, but the story's not over yet. So
No,
life
it
continues.
continues. That's what I want to ask you about next, about making it. Did you expect it to be such an undertaking as far as just being able to capture all these stories together, especially within that kind of limited amount of time, and then so many moments? And it just, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, I was like, this seems like a lot of work. Not saying other films aren't, but it just, the time and effort, you can just see it in just the span of all of what we get to see.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. It was a lot of work. But I knew what I was getting was really like a lot of it was gold, and it was going to create a nice tapestry of a story. Again, I feel like I was a little naive. I come from the scripted world, so I've done a ton of short films with actors, and you have a planned schedule, you bang it out, you go into post, boom, like 6 months, 8 months. So I kind of was naive, but it's also cool that I was able to get in my car with my camera gear and just go up to Humboldt and visit these farms. And I just was so taken by that world and that culture that it kept me coming back. Now, when I saw in the news that, as I said earlier, there's all these women in the space, I didn't know what the story was yet. Like I was like, oh wow, this, because the movie, making a movie, telling a good story, you have to have an arc. There's a method to it, and I was like, I can't just have profiles of women in cannabis. What is the story? So, which is why the whole trajectory of like, well, how are they going to fare with, over time in this space that just all these vultures, these venture capitalist vultures are coming in and decimating. I thought that would kind of create a lot of drama. But I did have a crew with me, a very, very small crew, even if it was one person. Christian Bruno, my cinematographer / producer. I had associate producers, filmmakers that were working with me. And then when I couldn't go to, say, City Hall, the Berkeley City Hall, and film Sue Taylor, trying to get her permit, I sent a student from the Berkeley School of Journalism over there.
Nice.
So I kind of was tapped in to the community as a filmmaker and was able to call and say, hey, can you go run over and just grab some footage of Sue? And sometimes Christian would fly up to Humboldt when I just couldn't do it, to go film. But other times when like the fires were happening, like we just kind of got in our car and went, because it was like the story was calling us to go. So it was quite a bit of work, but I'm really proud of it. And me too, when I watched the film, like, oh my God, I was there. I filmed that. It's like wild to watch the film.
Yeah, because I was like, she can't be at all places at all times, and they're not necessarily one town over. So yeah, congratulations on your.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's done very well, very informative. You had mentioned earlier that when you started the process, around the time when the vote was going to happen, were you expecting maybe a more positive spin on the story?
I was, frankly, I totally was. I had no idea, which, points to the fact that, even though we read these propositions in California, and we spend a lot of time as a voter, to understand what we're voting on. And then, as the movie shows, there's a reversal there when they took away, the 1 acre cap, which kind of would open the floodgates for big business. I guess I should have saw that coming, but I was like, wow, how is this possible? I voted for Prop 64, yes, and it said this, it had all these stipulations in it, and then all of a sudden they were taken out. So yeah, it was an interesting turn of events. So yeah, I was just very excited to profile women who were very confident, very smart, very enterprising, and happened to be in cannabis, right? Like, we have cannabis culture as a dude and a bro kind of culture, and to see these women sort of, really passionate for the plant and succeeding in their industry, in an industry that we know is just like, stoner dudes or whatever. I was like, wow, I'd love to turn it on its head and show that these women are, they're real people, they're real humans, and, they just happen to be in the cannabis industry.
I think one of the underlying messages that I took away, and it's a lesson that I learned kind of the hard way also, is in politics, it's not just about the vote. If you're going to make a difference, it's not just November or March or whenever primaries are. I can't remember right now. You got to try to make a difference every day, and whenever you can. There's council meetings. There's different things that happen throughout the year that if you want to make a difference in your community, you need to put a little bit of more work than that. And I can see that here in this film. Because like you said, the vote happened. We thought things were going to be a certain way. and it just took a couple of days, if that, to flip it all on its head. So I appreciate that message also.
Thank you. It's really, community is really important. And I think that's kind of also what's at the heart of the film, is that, you know, this community is really engaged, and you need to be engaged with your local legislators and, you know, people that are creating the laws, because sometimes they're created and they're not looking out for the people. They
Mm.
benefit others. So I completely agree with you. Stay engaged, and community is important.
But whether we see it in the film or maybe that's something that's behind the scenes, what's a moment that stood out to you that still maybe comes to your mind every now and then?
Hmm. Well, you know, the fires were really were scary.
Mhm.
So I think about that as a constant threat, not only to the cannabis farmers in the hills, but to California and other regions. Um, and being in those areas and, you know, feeling that threat, you know, was interesting. Um, and again, that reversal of the 1 acre cap was kind of so shocking, because it was like going to go through the night before. There was a meeting, and then by 10 a.m. the next day, it was completely taken out of the emergency regs. So that was really kind of shocking to me, that could happen in our
Mhm.
society, and basically overturning the will of the people, you know. So I was like,
Right.
how is this possible? So it really opened my eyes, you know, to the way things work sometimes, and to just, you know, how corporate capitalism is just sort of like, we need to kind of, you know, speak up and pay attention, or else it is taking over our democracy. I mean, specific moments in the film, there were so many beautiful moments in the cannabis
Mhm.
gardens. If you've ever been to one, you know, going up, you know, these into the hills of Mendocino and Humboldt, and, you know, just the beautiful 16-foot plants, and how beautiful it is up there, and just, you know, how beautiful the community is coming together. So many moments, I can't even really pinpoint them.
Yeah, those areas are phenomenal to just visit. Just some of those drives are just so relaxing and sometimes even therapeutic. I know exactly what you mean. I in making the film, it being that you work so hard on this documentary, what's a lesson that you can take into your next venture?
Well, this was really a labor of love. You know, I kind of like put my mind to it and just did it. I think that it's important to have the support as a filmmaker from either, you know, strong producing team, strong financial base, have the resources to really, be able to, let your creativity kind of, pull your vision together. It was a kind of a struggle financially, and, you know, we're a very, very small team. So the next projects, I hope, are set up, with more support. Although this film was crowdsourced, and there was a lot of people that gave to the film, and it wouldn't have happened without them. Um, but yeah, moving forward, more of an infrastructure. Um, I don't know. I don't know what I would do differently. I think maybe be a little more realistic about the time commitment.
Oh. Well, I know that with documentaries, like you said earlier, it's not scripted. So some of those moments either take a little bit longer to develop, or you just gotta be there. And I think you did well.
Thank you. You know, but what's also magical about making a documentary is if you can be really present, you know, when you're filming it,
Mhm.
and when you're going and doing these
Oh, okay.
experiences and these adventures. It's really rewarding. You know, I actually really like the process of making it. I find myself, I'm lucky that I'm able to watch my film in theaters at some film festivals, and I'm usually pacing in the background, you know, like it's uncomfortable. I mean, I love to hear the audience laugh and cry and clap, you know, and it's great. But it's also like the creative process in itself and making it's really, really exciting to me too.
Well, I like the fact that you did a fantastic job at profiling these fantastic women, and really leave an inspiring message for anyone and whatever that they're really inspired by, or that they love to do, whatever they're passionate about, to follow it and to not let anything stand in their way, including big government. I like the fact that you shed light at something that's really important about some of the things that are happening, might be happening underhanded, even though we think it's happening one way, it may be another way. So thank you. I thought it was a wonderful film, and I'll definitely be sharing this.
Amazing. I do wanted to also point out Felicia Carbajal, whom we didn't mention, is the activist that I profiled out of Los Angeles, who has been doing amazing work. I mean, she's an activist 24/7, and she was behind the recent expungement of 60,000 records in Los Angeles County.
Oh, okay.
So besides all of this like tough stuff like we have and challenges we have, there's also the bright side that her work is really paying off, and she's been nationally recognized in the news for that recent very large expungement of records. And that's her mission, is to continue doing that. So yes, we have challenges, but we also have the hope that, you know, activists like Felicia are actually really making change happen in our community.
Yeah, and hopefully by seeing films like this, more people can get involved and step up and help make a difference. CJ, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the film, and it's great to meet you.
Thanks for having me on, Emmanuel. Take care.
Take care, you too.